All right, so this session we're going to focus on phonemic awareness. So let's get started. So when we think about phonemic awareness, there are several different components. Here is a phoneme. Can't see anything? That's right, because you can only hear a phoneme. Here's a grapheme, the SH. A grapheme is a letter or a group of letters that represent a phoneme. So when we're looking for definitions, phonemic awareness is the ability to notice, think about, and work with the individual sounds in spoken words. Whereas phonemes are the smallest parts of sound in a spoken word that make a difference in the word's meaning. So phonemic awareness is not just another word for phonics. It's really the ability to take words apart, put them back together, to change them, just by listening and manipulating the sounds. I thought this was a great visual to help us to really understand phonological awareness and its relationship to phonemic awareness. So when we think about phonological awareness, it's that broader term that includes the larger parts of spoken language. The onsets and rhymes, so all of these raindrops, these components underneath, syllables, rhymes, alliteration, they're all parts of phonological awareness. And phonemic awareness is one of those parts as well. It's just a subset of phonological awareness, and it deals with the smallest parts of sounds and words. Whereas phonics is the understanding that there are letters and groups of letters that represent these sounds, or graphemes. So as soon as you start attaching letters to sounds, that's when we really shift to phonics, which we'll talk about in a separate video. So when we think about the research and rationale, a child's level of phonemic awareness on entering school is widely held to be the strongest single determinant of the success that he or she will experience in learning to read, or conversely, in the likelihood that she or he will have difficulty in learning to read. And there's really this debate over whether phonological awareness and phonemic awareness, according to Mari Clay, happens before reading instruction or as a result of reading instruction. There's this push and pull. And we know that phonemic awareness makes a stronger contribution to the improvement of reading and spelling when children are taught to use to manipulate the sounds and manipulate the phonemes. So when we think about phonemic awareness, as we read in the Partnership for Reading, it can be taught and learned. And that ultimately, a good sense of phonemic awareness helps children when they're learning to read. It helps children when they're learning to spell, and is most effective when it focuses only on one or two types of manipulation at a time. So for example, learning to blend phonemes with will help them to eventually read words when we start to add letters to it. And learning to segment sounds will help children to spell words. So you read in the Partnership for Reading about different ways to manipulate phonemes. And I actually have a Word document in the Phonemic Awareness folder that has individual descriptions of different activities that are listed that you can do. So when we think about isolation, that's recognizing individual sounds in a word. So for example, top. What is the first sound in the word top? T is the first sound. So that would be helping children isolate the beginning sound, the end sound of the word, the middle sound of the word. That is phonemic awareness isolation. When we think about identity, that's recognizing the same sound in different words. So what sound is the same in ball, bed, and bug? That's right, it's the B sound. That's the sound that's the same. And so that's identity when we're manipulating phonemes. And then categorization is the next manipulation activity you can do. So that's where you would recognize which word in a set has the odd sound. So for example, you would ask a student which word doesn't belong. Sat, got, sun. Obviously, in that set, got doesn't belong because it starts with a different sound. The next activity is blending. That's where you would combine phonemes to make a word. So for example, what word is m and n? Man. So you take each individual phoneme, and then the children have to blend those phonemes together and come up with the word. The next is segmentation. So that is the opposite, where the children, you'd give them a word and they have to separate the word into individual phonemes. So you would start with the word man, and the student would have to separate them m, and n into those three different sounds. The next example is deletion. So they'd have to recognize a word that remains when a phoneme is removed. So for example, what is the word grace without the g sound? So they would have to come up with race. So that's deletion. Next is addition. So you make a new word by adding a phoneme. So what word do you get if you add t to the beginning of rain? Train. Substitution is when you substitute one phoneme for another to make a new word. So change the m in mug to an er. So mug would then become rug. So these are all different ways that we want children to play with sounds and be able to manipulate sounds and phonemes in words. And so we really want to come up with teaching practices to help them do this. And there are several assessments available that help us to really determine what students' needs are. It helps us to determine what students' strengths in phonemic awareness are and where we can go with our instruction. So because phonemic awareness is naturally acquired by many students who are exposed to rich literacy experiences, it's important to assess your students to first determine their level of need. And as I was saying, their areas of need, as well as their areas of strengths. So pre-assessments will help you to determine what your students know and don't know and what you need to teach them. Post-assessments will tell you how well you've taught and how well they've learned, when and how you need to adjust your future instruction. So some informal assessments are the Stahl-Murray test of phonemic awareness, the TOPA, the test of phonemic awareness, dictation for phonological awareness, and hearing sounds and words. You could also, instead of giving a test of phonemic awareness, Reggie Routman suggests really looking at a student's writing and to see what they can do. She suggests examining a writing sample, such as a journal entry or a writing workshop piece. And if the students are writing words with consonants and vowels in the correct letter combination and sequence, then she suggests that they have phonemic awareness. I think that stretches it a little bit beyond phonemic awareness and starts really looking at that phonics instruction when we begin to look at writing samples. So I'm not sure that I necessarily would subscribe to that, but authors are writing about that. When we think about instruction, so phonemic awareness is necessary for students to become readers and is acquired by most children through rhyming and wordplay in rich literacy contexts. So you don't want to spend a lengthy period of time teaching it. You want to include language play throughout the day. And because of the findings of the National Reading Panel report, many kindergarten teachers who were successfully integrating phonemic awareness into their rich literacy experiences they provided for their children, now they really have to, they felt after the NRP came out that they really had to separate their instruction and really teach it as a discrete skill. But there's really not compelling evidence that systematic training in phonemic awareness makes students better readers or increases their comprehension. So really, as I was saying at the beginning, really having rich literacy play, rich experiences throughout your day where students are able to play with sounds, they're able to rhyme and chant, really is most effective. You don't want to spend 30 minutes a day on phonemic awareness instruction. It's more like a 5 to 10 minute throughout your day thing. So when we think about phonemic awareness instruction, there are several instructional strategies that people think about and write about. When we simply read aloud, students may attend to the words and learn in the story, but not become analytic of print. So when we are reading aloud alphabet books, or we're looking at some of our shared reading activities, we need to really help children call attention to some of the words and the prints in the context of the story. So shared reading and writing are great ways to incorporate these. But thinking about poems and chants and nursery rhymes, rhyming books, tongue twisters, picture sorts, and I'll actually show you examples of picture sorts, because in a separate video I'm going to dig deeper into Words Their Way, which is a pretty specific and explicit and systematic way to teach phonics, vocabulary, and spelling, and phonemic awareness as well. So I'll show you picture sorts then. But having kids clap out syllables, word games, name games, choral reading, those are all instructional strategies for phonemic awareness. Michael Opitz has a great book as well called Rhymes and Reasons, Literature and Language Play for Phonological Awareness. I think it came out maybe in 2000, and that's a really nice resource as well. So what I want you to do, either now or after the PowerPoint, is I want you to watch these two clips. So you're going to have to open up your PowerPoint separately and click on those links, and then watch phonemic awareness in action. So there's two separate videos that you'll watch. So when we think about reaching all learners, reading does not come naturally to the human brain, and children learning to read have to put a lot of effort into associating their spoken language with the alphabet and word recognition. So that's why researchers like Sousa argue that phonemic awareness is really essential. Sousa also talks about that reading problems are the most common difficulties that children have in school, and their lack of confidence in reading can affect their schoolwork. So really, significant progress is being made in understanding the connection between visual and auditory processing systems, and really helping children to build their phonemic awareness is vital to this. So when we think about it, we want to be specific and model our instruction. We want to select material from curriculum resources that use this strategy for all learners. We want to think about that the continuous sounds like s, are easier to produce and practice. So you do them before you think about stopping sounds such as b, k. See how those stop? And so you want to start with the easier sounds and move to more complex. Same with starting with rhyming and those easier tasks, then move on to more difficult tasks like blending and segmenting. Also, you want to move from words, larger, so the words, to onsets and rhymes, to smaller units like phonemes. So onsets and rhymes are like, let me think of an example. Object, ob would be the onset, ject would be the rhyme. And you want to really avoid letter names because again, that's when you're really shifting to phonics. Beginning sounds are the easiest, then ending sounds, then medial sounds. You want to emphasize listening for individual sounds and move from easiest to hardest. And you want to combine sounds. It's easier to hear consonant-vowel combinations than vowel-consonant. So when we think about English learners, there's not as much research on phonemic awareness instruction, but they need phonemic awareness instruction just as much as native speakers.